6 men down. You hear that number? 6. That's not a statistic. That isn't ink on a report or a line item in a budget meeting back in DC where the air conditioning is cold and the coffee is fresh. That's 6 empty bunks tonight. That's 6 mothers who are going to hear a knock on the door and have their entire universe shattered before they can even draw a breath. 6 men down. And no way out. Look at the dust. Taste it. It's mixed with iron and propellant. It coats the back of your throat like a shroud. The radio is screaming static, just white noise and panic, the soundtrack of a massacre in progress. And in the middle of that hell, amidst the screaming and the tearing of metal, one voice came over the comms. One terrified, hopeless voice from command saying, "Pull back. Abandon the assets. One rifle won't help. One rifle won't help." God, the arrogance of it. The sheer, blinding stupidity of people who look at war through a satellite feed and think they know the weight of a trigger pull. They thought it was over. They thought the Reaper had already swung the scythe. But they didn't know who was breathing in the dust. They didn't know who was watching the ridgeline. Before I show you how she turned a graveyard into a miracle, before I show you how one woman held back the tide of death itself, hit like. Smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment telling me where you're watching from, because the men in this valley didn't get to go home to their TVs. You owe it to them to witness this. They called her Driver. Chief Petty Officer Tessa Cole. You want to know why? It wasn't because she drove the trucks. It was because she drove the bolt. She drove the action. When Tessa Cole was on the gun, she was the only thing moving the world forward. She didn't have a heartbeat, she had a metronome. I've seen men twice her size, pumped full of adrenaline and testosterone, shake like leaves when the bullets start cracking overhead. They lose their minds. The lizard brain takes over. Fight or flight. But Tessa? She didn't have a lizard brain. She had a circuit board. Quiet. Unemotional. A ghost in the machine. 3 confirmed ambush rescues before this day. 3 times she stepped into the void and pulled men back from the ledge. But the brass? The people with the shiny collars? They didn't like her. She was too quiet. Too still. They mistake silence for weakness. They mistake composure for apathy. They didn't look at her gear either. A MK-13 Mod 5. Suppressed. Custom-tuned. That rifle wasn't government issue. It was an extension of her nervous system. She knew the tension of every screw. She knew the wear on the rifling. She treated that weapon better than she treated herself. So when that voice came over the radio, crying that one rifle wouldn't help, I laughed. I laughed until my ribs ached. Because they were talking about a standard infantryman. They were talking about suppressing fire. They'd never seen hers. They'd never seen what happens when Tessa Cole decides that you don't get to die today. Let's talk about the ground. The kill box. A narrow desert wash. The kind of place that feels like a coffin before you even step foot in it. High walls, loose shale, blinding sun hitting the peaks, but leaving the floor in shadow. It was a supply route. That's what they called it. A supply route. A safe zone. Don't make me laugh. There is no such thing as a safe zone in this country. There is only the target and the shooter. It was pre-dawn. The light was gray, flat, deceptive. The worst kind of light for a soldier, but the perfect light for optics. The air was dry, carrying a crosswind that licked across the valley floor. Tessa felt it on her skin. She felt the barometric pressure dropping. She knew. She knew before the first tire spun in the sand. You develop a sense for it. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up. The birds stop singing. The world holds its breath. She felt the ambush waiting in the rocks like a coiled viper, but she had no proof. Just a gut feeling. And you can't call in an airstrike on a gut feeling. You can't stop a convoy because the air feels heavy. So they rolled on. Into the throat of the beast. And then the world ended. It wasn't a noise. It was a concussion. A physical blow that hit you in the chest before the sound even registered. The lead vehicle, an armored transport carrying 6 months of mail and medical supplies, didn't just explode. It disintegrated. A blast charge buried deep, wired for maximum devastation. The shockwave turned the air into a hammer. Then came the symphony. Gunfire erupting from both ridgelines. Not disorganized spray and pray. This was synchronized. This was a wall of lead slamming down into the wash. The troops in the rear vehicles? Pinned. Heads down. Eating dirt. The dust kicked up by the explosion turned the valley into a brownout. Spotting scopes were useless. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face, let alone a muzzle flash 500 yards up a jagged cliff. Panic. That's what the enemy wants. They want you to scream. They want you to run. They want you to empty your magazines at shadows so they can pick you off while you reload. But Tessa? She didn't panic. She didn't move. She lay in the prone, 50 yards back, shrouded in a thermal blanket and desert scrub. She closed her eyes. Can you imagine that? Hell is breaking loose around you. Shrapnel is singing through the air. Men are screaming for their mothers, and she closes her eyes. She wasn't hiding. She was listening. She was rebooting. Stop the panic. Count the shots. Locate the sound. The ambush was layered. It was professional. This wasn't a ragged band of insurgents with rusty AKs. This was money. This was training. And that made me angry. It makes my blood boil just thinking about it. Because someone trained them. Someone paid for those bullets. Let's define the enemy, shall we? Let's look at the bastards looking down the sights. Afghan narco fighters. Mercenaries paid in heroin and dollars. But they were just the muscle. They were the distraction. Behind them? 2 Chechen counter-snipers. I hate Chechens. I respect them, but I hate them. They are disciplined. They are cruel. And they are patient. Notice the radio silence? No shouting. No Allahu Akbar. Just rhythmic, suppressed fire. They weren't shooting at the trucks anymore. They weren't shooting at the guys returning fire. They were targeting the wounded. They were waiting for a soldier to crawl out, clutching a shattered leg, and then, snap, they'd put a round through his hand. Not his head. His hand. Why? To make him scream. To bring out the medic. They wound the first to kill the second. They wipe the survivors last. It's a game to them. A meat grinder. They treat human life like bait on a hook. It raises the stakes, doesn't it? It changes the calculus. It stops being a battle and starts being a slaughter. And that's when the anger really set in for Tessa. That cold, hard knot in the center of her chest. They weren't soldiers. They were butchers. And she was the only one holding the knife. Corporal Saint. Good kid. 22 years old from Ohio. Plays the guitar. Writes letters to his sister every week. He was bleeding out behind the burning wreck of the lead Humvee. Shrapnel in his thigh, arterial bleed. He's white as a sheet, shaking from shock, but he's still holding his rifle up. He's shielding 2 younger soldiers, kids really, who are frozen with terror. Saint looks up. He can't see Tessa. He doesn't know where she is. But he knows she's out there. He knows Driver is watching. He whispers into his comms. His voice is wet, gurgling with blood. Give me something to believe in, Cole. That right there breaks you. It's not romance. Don't you dare think this is some Hollywood love story. This is deeper than that. This is the bond of people who have shared the same mud, the same fear, the same terrible food. It's mutual survival respect. He wasn't asking for a miracle. He was asking for competence. He was asking her to do the job she was born to do because if she didn't, he was going to die in the dirt, thousands of miles from Ohio. Give me something to believe in. God, the weight of that. The crushing, suffocating weight of being someone's last hope. This is the part you need to understand. Being a sniper isn't about having a good eye. It's about being a mathematician with a license to kill. Tessa didn't just look through a scope. She dissected the world. She's lying there, the dust settling on her lashes, and she's running the numbers. Wind direction? The crosswind is whipping through the canyon, but look at the dust from the broken glass on the road. It's swirling. That means there's an updraft near the cliffs. She has to compensate for that. Muzzle flash mapping. She can't see the shooters, but she can see the rhythm of the light reflecting off the canyon walls. Radio delay. She hears the crack of the bullet, then the thump of the discharge. She counts the milliseconds. Sound travels at 1,100 feet per second. Crack, 1, 2. Thump. Distance, 600 yards. Elevation, 200 feet. She identifies the pattern. 3 firing nests. 2 spotters. And then she realizes the smartest thing anyone did that day. The enemy shooters are rotating. They fire 3 rounds, then move 10 feet to the left. They fire 3 more, move 10 feet to the right. They are creating a phantom army. They are making it look like there are 20 of them when there are only 5. She whispered to herself, barely moving her lips. They're hunting the sniper first, so they think I'm scared. They thought she was pinned. They thought she was cowering. They didn't know she was doing algebra. They didn't know she was building a map of their deaths inside her head. And then, the knife twisted. Tessa's headset picked up a bleed over. A ghost frequency. It happens sometimes in the mountains, signals bouncing off the granite. She heard chatter. Not Chechen. Not Pashto. English. American English. Route confirmed. Packages stopped. Finish the cleanup. The blood drained from her face. That wasn't an enemy commander. That was us. Or someone pretending to be us. They knew the convoy route. They knew the timing. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone in American command leaked the intel. Someone sold them. Can you feel that? Can you feel the bile rising in your throat? You didn't walk into danger. You were sold to it like cattle. Saint, bleeding out in the sand? He was a line item on a receipt. The 6 dead men? Collateral damage in a transaction. Now it wasn't just survival. Now it was personal. Now it was vengeance. She looked at the radio. She wanted to scream. She wanted to burn the world down. You didn't walk into danger, she hissed. Someone sold you to it. She had no time for rage. Rage makes you shake. Rage makes you miss. She shoved the anger into a box, locked it tight, and swallowed the key. She cleared a patch of dirt with her knife. She drew a map. 5 X's. 5 targets. Saint was fading. She could hear his breathing getting shallow over the comms. The Chechens were closing in, getting ready to flank. She had 90 seconds. 90 seconds before Saint bled out or the Chechens got an angle on the survivors. 5 shots. 5 targets. Plan: suppress the first 2. Confuse the spotters. Blind the machine gunner. Force the enemy to reposition. Take the Chechen sniper last. She looked at the dirt. It was a suicide pact. If she missed 1 shot, just 1, they would triangulate her position and rain hell down on her. She would be dead in seconds. She keyed her mic. 1 click. Saint heard it. He nodded, even though his eyes were glazing over. He knew. No backup is coming. The cavalry isn't riding over the hill. It's just her. It's just the driver. Clock starts. 90 seconds. The spotter. The eyes of the enemy. He was leaning out, binoculars glinting in the sun. He felt safe. He felt arrogant. Tessa exhaled. She felt the beat of her heart in her fingertips. Ba-thump. Ba-thump. Between the beats. The round hit him center mass. He didn't fall. He was erased. He dropped back into the hole. Immediate confusion on the ridge. Where did it come from? Who is shooting? Beat 2. The machine gunner. The one keeping the Marines pinned. He turned his gun toward the echo of Tessa's shot. He exposed his head. Just a sliver. Just a melon-sized target at 600 yards. Silence. The heavy rhythmic thumping of the machine gun stopped. The air suddenly felt lighter. The survivors looked up. The rescue window cracked open, just an inch. Beat 3. The runner. One of the narco fighters panicked. He broke cover, running from left to right, trying to find a better angle. A moving target. Fast. Erratic. Tracking. Led him by 3 feet. Let him run into the bullet. Dropped him mid-stride. He hit the ground like a sack of wet cement. Beat 4. The Chechen. The Alpha. The counter-sniper. He saw the muzzle flash. He was good. He was fast. He swung his rifle and fired. A bullet snapped past Tessa's ear. It was so close she felt the heat of it. It cut a lock of her hair. She flinched. Instinct. But she didn't freeze. She changed her breathing. Half count. Inhale, hold, release half, squeeze. He was chambering his next round. He thought he had her suppressed. He peeked. The scope on his rifle shattered. The bullet went through the glass, through his eye, and out the back of his skull. The lights went out. Beat 5. The final nest. The last shooter. He was dug in deep behind a truck tire on the ridge. Impossible angle. No clear shot. But Tessa knew the physics. She knew that the gap between the tire and the rim was exactly 4 inches. She couldn't see him. She could only see the shadow of his barrel. She aimed for the gap. A thread-the-needle shot that you only take if you have a death wish or divine intervention. A whisper with consequences. The bullet sang through the rubber gap. It sparked off the rim. It tumbled. It tore into the nest. A scream. Then silence. The valley went quiet. No more gunfire. No more explosions. Just the wind whistling through the rocks. 90 seconds. 5 shots. 5 bodies. The survivors started to stand up. Slowly. Disbelievingly. They looked toward Tessa's position. They looked at her like she was something unreal. Like she was a mythological creature that had descended from the heavens. But she wasn't a god. She was a woman lying in the dirt, covered in dust, with a bruised shoulder and a ringing in her ears. Drones arrived 10 minutes later. They confirmed the kills. 5 bodies. 3 weapons caches. And they found the documents. On the Chechen's body. Maps. Frequencies. Bank transfer numbers. It was all there. The proof of the betrayal. The proof that those men had been sold for silver. Resolution. You want a hero speech? You want her to stand on the hood of a Humvee and wave a flag? You're watching the wrong channel. Tessa walked down from the ridge. Her legs were shaking now. The adrenaline was dumping. She walked over to where Saint was being loaded onto a stretcher. He was pale, he was weak, but he was alive. He looked at her. He tried to speak, but he couldn't. He just gripped her hand. His hand was sticky with blood. Hers was covered in gun oil. She sat down next to him, exhausted. She looked at the body bags being zipped up. 6 of them. She looked at the officer who had said 1 rifle wouldn't help. The man was staring at the ground, unable to meet her eyes. She didn't yell. She didn't rage. She just adjusted her sling. She looked at Saint and said the only thing that mattered. 1 rifle didn't help. She paused, looking at the carnage, looking at the cost of doing business in a war sold by traitors. It decided. That's it. No victory lap. Just the professional truth. The rifle is a tool. The shooter is the will. And on that day, in that valley, the will of Tessa Cole decided who lived and who died. 1 rifle decided. If you felt that, if you felt the anger and the dust, hit that like button. Share this. Because the news won't tell you about the betrayal. They won't tell you about the math. They'll just tell you 6 men died. Don't let them be just a number. I'm out.